The Chernobyl exclusion zone, a 2,600 square kilometer monument to a catastrophe sealed under a sarcophagus built in haste. Deep within, a subterranean monster of melted corium, the infamous elephant's foot, slowly radiates, a threat to the very water table of Europe. For decades, the problem has been one of containment, of waiting, of hoping the slow decay of physics will solve a problem we cannot. But what if we stopped waiting? What if we addressed this lingering radioactive threat with a solution of absolute final purity? Today, we take a simple premise to its logical and horrifying conclusion. What if we dumped antimatter in Chernobyl? First, let's set the stage. Our target is the corium lava, a mix of nuclear fuel, control rods, and melted concrete. It's a complex mess of radioactive isotopes, but its signature threat comes from elements like cesium-137, which will poison the land for centuries. Our tool for this cleanup job is antimatter, to be precise, 1 gram of solidified antihydrogen. Before we proceed, let's acknowledge the sheer absurdity of our tool. The total amount of antimatter ever created by humanity at places like CERN amounts to mere nanograms. The energy required to produce a single gram would power a major country for years, and storing it requires a magnetic bottle of unimaginable complexity, lest it touch the walls of its container and annihilate prematurely. So let's assume we've solved these trivial engineering hurdles. We have our 1 gram pellet suspended in a vacuum ready to be dropped. The plan is simple. Deliver the pellet to the elephant's foot. The moment it makes contact with the normal matter of the corium, the process begins. Let's slow down time. The first nanosecond, a few antiprotons at the surface of our pellet meet a few protons in the corium. They annihilate. The second nanosecond, this initial tiny annihilation unleashes a wave of high-energy gamma rays and pions. These particles fly outwards, striking both our antimatter pellet and the surrounding corium, triggering a runaway chain reaction of annihilation that consumes the entire gram of antimatter in less than a microsecond. 2 grams of matter, 1 of matter, 1 of antimatter are converted to energy with 100% efficiency. The result is 1.8x 10^14 joules. This is not a chemical or nuclear explosion, it is an explosion of pure reality conversion. This energy, equal to 43 kilotons of TNT, is released primarily as a flash of gamma rays more brilliant than the core of the sun. This initial gamma flash is the main event. What happens next is merely a consequence. The air in the reactor hall, flash heated by the gamma rays to millions of degrees, turns to plasma and expands outwards, creating a secondary thermal blast wave that mimics a conventional nuclear bomb, but on a much larger scale. The new safe confinement arch, the original sarcophagus, the ruins of Reactor 4, and the surrounding structures are not blown apart. They are vaporized. The ground beneath is superheated and excavated, leaving a glassy, intensely radioactive crater. The problem of the decaying structure is solved, but the problem of the radiation has just been amplified into a planetary crisis. That flood of gamma rays and the secondary burst of neutrons from the annihilation did something far more insidious than just make a big bang. It fundamentally altered the atomic nature of the environment. This is where our cleanup operation fails spectacularly. First, there's photodisintegration. The gamma rays striking the existing radioactive isotopes like cesium-137 act like atomic-scale sledgehammers. They violently knock neutrons and protons out of the nuclei, transmuting them into a chaotic zoo of other, often more violently unstable isotopes. We didn't destroy the radiation, we just shuffled it into new, angrier forms. But the true nightmare is neutron activation. The original Chernobyl disaster contaminated the area with fission products. Our antimatter solution contaminated the very atoms of the Earth itself. The air, stable nitrogen-14 atoms, making up 78% of the atmosphere, absorb neutrons and become radioactive carbon-14. The air itself is now a long-term radiological hazard. The ground, the silicon in the concrete and sand becomes radioactive phosphorus-32. The iron rebar in the structures becomes cobalt-60, a powerful gamma emitter with a 5-year half-life, ensuring the crater remains lethally radioactive for decades. The water, the vast reservoirs and the nearby Dnieper River now contain tritium, as the stable hydrogen in H2O has been activated. The contamination is no longer just in the soil, it is in the water cycle. We took a concentrated, albeit dangerous, mess and blasted it into its constituent atoms, making every one of those atoms a new secondary source of poison. The resulting mushroom cloud, carrying not just the original material but a fresh brew of newly minted isotopes, would climb into the stratosphere. The fallout would create a new exclusion zone, not measured in dozens of kilometers but in hundreds, possibly thousands. Weather patterns would carry this activated dust across continents. In conclusion, using antimatter to clean up Chernobyl is a category error. It's like using a flamethrower to dust a priceless artifact. You approach the problem with a tool of such overwhelming, indiscriminate power that the original issue becomes a quaint footnote in the history of the new, far grander disaster you have just created. You have successfully cleaned the fire out of the kitchen by vaporizing the entire city block it was in and igniting the atmosphere.